Welcome to Audacity with PS. Be and retain your virtue across board wherever you find yourself. Even if you think you are broke, listen, it does not affect your self-worth as a believer. You must see yourself as a lion. If God says you are a lion, you are a lion.
Hey family, good morning. I trust you had a wonderful weekend and I'm sure you are excited to start out the amazing week ahead of us. Welcome to Audacity with PS. Before I proceed, I'd love to acknowledge and appreciate my pastor, our apostle, for this opportunity to be here today and to do this with the new family. Before I get right into the talk for today, PS, started out last week talking to us about boldness, being as bold as a lion and also taking baby steps towards our goals. Right about now, I want to encourage you to share the link across the social media platforms, share on your status, share with family and friends, and ensure that everybody is plugged right in for the goodness that we have in store today. Okay, so today we will be talking about managing relationships in career and in business. God has a purpose for every one of us, but guess what? Our purpose cannot be fulfilled in isolation. Nobody's purpose was designed to run solo. We need people, we need relationships. We need to understand collaboration, we need to understand communication, soft skills, emotional intelligence, how to manage the people God brings to us, how to connect with people with our uniqueness, how to have deep and productive connections with other people. This is a very critical skill to master. I mean, imagine for somebody in a corporate setting that just at the beginning of their career, they were not armed with certain skills or they didn't have certain understanding and they had to suffer for, their lack of knowledge and their ignorance that is as they grow through the ranks, as they fail and learn from experience that they start to learn it. But it doesn't have to be that way because the wisdom, the resources are available for us. And as we apply ourselves, we get better, we get an edge, just by reason of having knowledge on certain things and not necessarily failing and then learning from experience. The anchor scripture is going to be from Proverbs 11 verse 14, where there is no counsel, the people fail, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety. So it's very critical to understand that all the wisdom that we need to excel, everything we need for life and godliness has been provided for us, right? Every problem you would realize that you just need the wisdom for it. So I will get right into it. How do we maximize relationships? I'm going to share something called the PI formula. The PI formula, and this is a formula that applies not just to career professionals, but for also business owners, entrepreneurs, right? The PI formula is an acronym, PIE. The P stands for performance, the I stands for image, and E stands for exposure. I learned this early on in my career and it was of tremendous help to me. The first is performance. So what does performance mean? This talks about your skills, it talks about your competence, it talks about your strength, it talks about your expertise. Basically, in plain terms, it talks about your capacity and ability to do good work. Performance. And if you realize these three elements I just mentioned, performance, image, and exposure, these are things that are within our control. How people do certain things or how they interact with us are elements that are not within our control, but our performance within our control, our image within our control, our exposure within our control. So I'm going to dive right into it in further details. So performance, like I said, it talks about your skills, talks about what you can do. Can you get the job done? Can you do it better than the next person next to you? And then the second is image. This talks about how people perceive you. What's your outlook? What's your physical outlook, right? How do people interact with you based on the energy you put out there, based on how you put your foot forward. When people meet you for the first time, if they were to describe you in one word, what's the word they are going to use to describe you? So basically, image is how you represent yourself, is how you allow yourself, is how you shape the way people view you or look at you. And then the third is on exposure. Basically, this speaks to the fact that, do you know the things, the people and places that matter? And do the people that matter know you? That's exposure. So exposure means playing outside your the field of your comfort zone, ensuring that you are not just surrounded with the familiar, but the unfamiliar is also has some level of interaction with you. So that's what exposure is about. Exposure not only falls within maybe traveling or reading books, but also ensure that the people that matter outside of your immediate scope have some sort of interaction with you. So the question of the day is, how do we elevate our pie? The first on performance, which means, how we get things done, our expertise. You need to improve your performance, and how you do that, apart from learning on the job, apart from seeking formal and informal learning, apart from seeking mentorship and all of that, it's also genuinely applying yourself in a generation where everybody's about the optics, everybody wants to be visible. Not a lot of people put their attention to actually knowing how to get the job done, because you don't want to have a platform where the whole world can see your weaknesses or your laps, or can see the things you should have worked on in the secret, right? So first of all, you need to work on your performance. Ensure you can actually get the job done. Ensure you are investing in yourself. Very critical. You are your number one and priority investment. So it's very important that you are pouring into yourself. You are ensuring that you're owning your skills. You're actually getting the job done. Because if you don't apply yourself and you have some ideas on how to get the job done, trust me, the person who is actually applying themselves is going to do a better job, than you. So the second on elevating your image. You can do this by improving your physical outlook, how you dress, the way you speak, the way you communicate, the way you interact with people. Because I realized that in corporate settings, people feel that management, leaders high up there, when they want to make critical decisions about employees, they do all of the data analytics. And yes, there's that element, where you look at people's results, the things they've done, their growth curve. But trust me, a lot of the time, it is purely subjective. It is purely subjective because it is driven by people's perception of you. And that's why you see that a lot of the time, people that you are actually better than in terms of skill tend to get ahead. Why? Because they've mastered the art of elevating their image. The way you speak, can you hold an articulate conversation with top management? Can you hold an articulate conversation with your manager, with your one-up manager? These are the things that prove to people that you are a high potential individual. So you need to elevate your outlook. If you have an opportunity to be in a meeting or to be in a conference, you need to dress the part. People will be thinking, does this person look like they are ready for the next level? Does this person look like they are fit to come into a higher sphere? Can I trust this person to be invited into this meeting and they are going to come dressed properly? These are things that people might not be explicitly taught, or people may not be told in black and white, but you just realize that certain people are getting ahead, but you are not. It's also very critical to understand how to communicate. And I'm going to give a personal example. I remember just, fresh out of university, I was an intern at the time, and a senior colleague had actually walked up to me. I was like, "Oh, hey, you're one of the new interns." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, introduce myself. My name is Tope." And I gave this colleague a handshake, and he was like, "Wow, you shake like a CEO." That marked something in that person's mind, and it also marked something in my mind, because I wasn't trying to shake like a CEO. I was just shaking confidently. But these things just marks people's perception of you. It means that when you are in a room, there's a meeting and people are asked to share their thoughts, have something to say, because that might be the only interaction people will have of you that will mark something in their mind and ensure that they recommend you for opportunities you have no clue about. And this has worked for me, and I know this is something that keeps working for people who apply it. So we need to put in the work to elevate our image, the way people perceive us. Trust me, everybody is not walking around with a shovel trying to dig for who you truly are on the inside. If you don't show people who you are on the inside, they will not get to interact with the awesomeness that you are. So the third is on exposure. Exposure, like I said, talks about if the people that matter actually know us. It means seeking the right mentors, maintaining connections, ensuring that you leave a mark wherever you go. And one thing I like to tell people is that ensure you seek mentors and sponsors in the space you play. As believers or people in very strong communities, I see that people limit their connections to those in those communities. I mean, if you're a career professional, your connections cannot be limited to people in the church setting, in your tribes, or whatever the case may be. Because guess what? They may give you all the wisdom you need. Truly, they may actually have all you need in terms of wisdom. But guess what? When they are discussing who they are going to promote, I can assure you your pastor is not going to be in that room. I can assure you that career mentor you have in your immediate community is not going to be in that room. It's going to be somebody in the organization. So it matters a lot that you maintain connection with those who matter and are stakeholders in the space you play. So it means that as a business owner, you are not just interacting with your peers in terms of those doing maybe similar business as you or at the same scale as you. You have to look for how to establish connection with those that control the industry, with industry stakeholders. Because when decisions are going to be made, trust me, these are the people that are going to be in that room. I also have a personal example about, I have a mentor that in my organization, even though the person is not currently, in the country where I work, but I remember that I was supposed to go for a training. I really wanted to go for a training. It was in my scope of work, and my immediate manager said, "Oh, I couldn't go, for some reasons." And I just, moved on from it. Only for this mentor of mine in another continent. This mentor, I just got an email and I saw that he had started to have conversations on my behalf because he realized, oh, Tope should be a part of, this training. And just because of that, I got the approval to travel outside of the country for that training. It wasn't because my manager did not want me to go, right? But maybe there were just some things high up that he wasn't aware of because he wasn't in, he wasn't in the country where I am at the moment. But because I had a stakeholder, I had somebody who had visibility into what was happening, it worked for my benefit. So we need to ensure that we spread our tentacles of exposure so that we are top of mind to the people that matter and we can be recommended for opportunities. So before I move on from this, one of the questions that people get to ask a lot in corporate settings is, how do I manage my manager? And sometimes this seems quite daunting and tasking because this is my boss. But really, what's the work of your manager? Your manager is tasked with ensuring that you are rightly deployed as an employee, that you are you are being enabled with the right environment and support to grow. And they are also supposed to remove barriers for you to win and fly. Sometimes it can seem challenging, to be a major player or to influence things in that dynamics, because you feel like this is my boss, this is me, but not necessarily. And somehow, because of our cultural setting, there's that funny subordinate dynamics that happens between managers and the subordinate, or the people they lead, right? But it doesn't need to be the case. Managing your manager, I know we must have heard that statement a lot, but basically what it means is that having the ability to influence the dynamics between that relationship. You don't have to just go with the tide. You actually have a say in that dynamics, and you can influence things. So when I talk about this, I'm basically saying you can influence that dynamics, and you can influence how the rapport with you and your manager would eventually board to be, right? So what are the things you can do to effectively manage your manager, which is to influence that dynamics? For example, for some people, their manager can call them up and say, you know what, I want you to work on 1, 2, 3, and I need you to turn it in by close of business today. But you know that this is unrealistic. But because you feel like you can't influence that dynamics, you go ahead to say, okay, I will get it done. But you know that realistically it cannot be done, or at least it can't be done excellently in that timing, right? So one of these you can do is to first understand the priorities of your leader or of your manager. When you understand your boss's priorities, you can determine what's important and what's not in that moment, or what's urgent and what's not. You also need to learn communication and conflict management skills, which means that you communicate clearly. You learn how to summarize. Sometimes some people have issues they want to communicate, and they spend 10 minutes trying to communicate, something that they could have summarized, in lesser time. So communication and conflict management, which means communicating clearly, learning how to summarize, and asking for feedback. For some people, you have an issue to discuss and you spend 10 minutes discussing something that you could have summarized in 1 minute. I've had a manager that when you start to talk for long, you literally see the person visibly lose interest and get distracted. So it means that I had to learn how to summarize my key points. They are just because as you go higher in your industry, in your career, you realize that it's very necessary to fine-tune the art of talking top level, right? So it means that for some of you, you have to learn how to write one-pagers. So it means if I ask you the state of your business, the state of your team, the state of your scope of work, you have to learn how to summarize everything concisely, that for instance, if it's given to your CEO, they don't get bored and they are yawning just because they're trying to understand what you're working on. So that's one of the ways that you can even elevate your image, because people feel like this person is ready for the next level. They are thinking the way leaders are thinking. They are thinking top level. They are thinking big points, because you don't have to saddle. As people go up, they don't really want to be saddled with these small operational things. They want to think top level. They want to think, what are we doing in the next 1 year, in the next 5 years? So it's very important that you develop clear communication skills. You learn how to talk big points, summarize. You learn how to ask for feedback. Sometimes you get into review meetings, and that's the first time that you are hearing that your manager is not pleased about something you are doing, or has feedback for you, when you could have just maybe taken the step to initiate by monthly reviews or monthly one-on-one sessions, where you just ask your manager to give you honest feedback, tell you the things you need to stop doing, things you need to start doing, things you need to continue doing, and how you can improve, so that at the end of the day, half year or at the end of the fiscal year or calendar year, you are not surprised when your manager is giving you feedback, right? So that's one of the ways that you can actively influence that dynamics and manage your manager. Also manage expectations, which means that be clear on what your manager wants and what you can deliver. So when expectations are not managed, your manager has expectations this high and then you deliver this way, there's going to be conflict. But at the moment, your manager is setting the bar this way, but you know in this timing, with the resources, this is what I can deliver, and everybody's clear, then it's going to minimize whatever issues may have otherwise come up, right? And then the last is being proactive, which means you know what to do, but instead of doing the barest minimum, going above and beyond, right? Some of the blind spots of your manager, because they're thinking more top level, it's easy for your eyes to catch it. Be a value, be someone who delivers value, be a solution provider, right? So these are one of the ways rather that you can effectively manage your manager. Remember, managing your manager means that you are an active collaborator and you are actively influencing the dynamics of the relationship between you and your leader, your boss, or your manager. So do not forget the PI factor: performance, image, and exposure. For some of you, you have to go take a course to improve your performance. You are very clear that there is a capability gap, so you need to fix that. For some of you, maybe you need to have a wardrobe overhaul. You are not looking the part and you know you are not looking the part. Or when you get to rooms, you have inferiority complex, because trust me, when you dress confident, you will feel confident, right? People want to speak to you. People feel like you have something to say, you have something to offer, right? And even if you don't know everything there is to know, but trust me, there's the likelihood that you'll be invited into the space where people are saying things you need to hear. And then exposure. For some of you, you need to find a strategic mentor in your organization, somebody who you feel you can learn from and has something, a skill you are trying to actively develop. So look out for that, explore that, and invest in it. To round off this session, I have an exercise for you. I want you to find 2 or 3 trusted colleagues. Please do not look for family members or friends who don't interact with you in the work setting and have no clue how you work, or have no clue about the work dynamics, right? Look for trusted colleagues who see you in your work element, right? And ask them to rate you on a scale of 1 to 3 on your PI factor. 1 being the lowest, 3 being the highest, and 2, of course, average. So ask that colleague, 2 or 3 of them, ask them to rank you on your performance. So it means that in the pool, or within the pool of those who do the same thing as you do, how would they rank your performance? How would they rank your skill and your expertise, right? On a scale of 1 to 3. Same thing for image, right? Ask them to rank your image, how people generally perceive you, if it's the same way that you perceive yourself. So ask them to rank that as well. And of course, your exposure. Ask them that in the pool of those that matter, key stakeholders, the managing director, CEO, do I have that level of connectedness to them? Am I top of mind to these people? Then ask them to rank you. And of course, do an average of that. If it's on a 3, then keep doing what you do and take it up a notch higher. Because of course you want to progress from where you are to where you know you truly need to be. And if it's less than that, you can highlight where the gaps are. If it's on the performance, you know what to do. Image and exposure, you know what to do to fix it. And of course, every 3 months you can check in with that colleague of yours to ask if anything has improved, if anything has changed. This is how we hold ourselves accountable and we track our progress rather. So the PI factor is game for every industry, not just for career professionals, but even for business owners. So you want to find maybe a trusted employee, or you even want to find a trusted customer to rank you, on the PI factor. So that's about it for today's episode of Audacity with PS, talking about managing relationships in career and in business as well. So before we close for this morning, I would like us to take the creed in an energetic manner to get our day fired up. As sure as God helps me, I will not give up. I will not cave in. I will not quit. I will not fail. I will not fear. I will not die until my job is done and victory is won. I am the new and I love this church. God bless you and have a winning week. Bye for now.